You know, there are stories about power, and then there's this story. It's about a king so consumed by his own ego that he actually declared himself a god. It's an incredible account of arrogance, divine intervention, and the kind of justice that finds everyone eventually. So where does a story like this even begin? Well, it all starts with this one staggering claim. These are the words of the Pharaoh of Egypt. And this wasn't just some boast, This was the entire foundation of his kingdom and the very seed of his spectacular downfall. All right, let's set the scene. We're talking about ancient Egypt at the absolute peak of its power. This was a land of unbelievable wealth and massive monuments, all of it built on a bedrock of pride and, well, the brutal oppression of an entire people. Pharaoh's rule was total. I mean, his people didn't just obey him, they worshipped him. His power was absolute. And living within this kingdom were the Bani Israel, the Israelites, who were completely enslaved, their spirits crushed, to make sure that no one could ever challenge the throne. So you gotta wonder, right? What could possibly scare a guy like that? Turns out, the answer was a dream. One night, the man who thought he controlled everything was rattled by a vision that he couldn't control at all. And this wasn't some vague, blurry dream. No, this was crystal clear. He saw a fire, a new power that specifically targeted his people, burning their homes to the ground while leaving the homes of the slaves completely untouched. For the very first time, Pharaoh felt that his total control might not be so total after all. And just like that, his greatest fear was given a face. His soothsayers deliver a prophecy. A child born to the very people he enslaves would one day bring his entire empire crumbling down. And this is the moment that Pharaoh's fear twists into something truly monstrous. So what does a tyrant do when he feels backed into a corner by destiny? He tries to fight it with pure brutality. He decides that to stop the prophecy, he has to wipe out its source, the children of the Bani Israel. It's a command that is almost too horrific to imagine. A systematic slaughter designed to kill the prophesied hero before he could even take his first breath. Thousands of innocent babies were killed by his soldiers. But what Pharaoh didn't know was that a divine plan was already unfolding. Right in the middle of this terror, the boy, Moses, is born. And his mother receives these instructions directly from God. Now think about the faith this required. To save her son, she has to put him in a basket and let him go, setting him adrift on the Nile River. And here's where the story takes an unbelievable turn. The basket doesn't just float away. It floats directly to Pharaoh's own palace. And who finds it? His wife, Asya. Her heart just melts, and she convinces a very reluctant Pharaoh to spare the child. The boy destined to destroy the kingdom was now being raised right under the king's nose. Okay, so years go by. Moses grows up as a prince, then he flees Egypt and becomes a humble shepherd. And it's out there, in the quiet of the desert, at a burning bush, that God chooses him for his real mission. Go back and confront the tyrant he once called his father. Imagine this scene. Moses and his brother Aaron walk right back into the lion's den. They stand before Pharaoh himself. They don't ask for a favor. They deliver a command from the one true God. Let my people go. Of course, Pharaoh just laughs. He demands proof, a sign of this so-called God. So Pharaoh, being Pharaoh, sets up this huge public showdown. He calls in all his best magicians, they throw down their ropes and staffs, and through trickery, they look like slithering snakes. It's a pretty impressive illusion. But then, Moses throws down his staff, and it becomes a massive, real serpent that literally eats all of their fake ones. And this is just a stunning moment. The very experts in deception, the people Pharaoh brought in to debunk Moses, were the first to recognize the truth. They immediately knew this was no trick. This was real power. And right there, in front of a furious Pharaoh, they declared their belief in the God of Moses. Now, you'd think this amazing display of divine power might soften Pharaoh's heart, right? Nope, not at all. His pride was wounded and his arrogance just got worse. Since he rejected the clear sign, he and his kingdom were about to face a series of divine plagues. What came next were 5 devastating plagues, and each one wasn't random. It was a direct challenge to Pharaoh's authority and the Egyptian gods he claimed to represent. They were designed to break down his kingdom piece by painful piece. And these plagues were just relentless. First, massive storms destroyed their crops. Then, whatever was left, swarms of locusts devoured. Frogs and lice were everywhere, in their food, their homes, their beds. And finally, the Nile River, the very lifeblood of Egypt, turned to blood. But with every single plague, Pharaoh did the same thing. He'd beg for relief, promise to let the people go, and then as soon as it stopped, his heart would harden all over again. After the last, most devastating plague, a heartbroken Pharaoh finally relents. He lets the Israelites leave. Under the cover of night, an entire nation just walks to freedom. But by the next morning, Pharaoh's grief has already turned back to pure rage, and he gathers his entire army for one last furious pursuit. The Israelites get to the edge of the Red Sea, and all that hope just turns to sheer terror. In front of them, an ocean they can't cross. Behind them, the dust cloud of the most powerful army on earth, closing in fast. They are completely and utterly trapped. And as his people are crying out, absolutely terrified, Moses is just calm. His faith doesn't shake for a second. He tells them, "Don't worry, the same God who brought us this far will see us through." And then it happens. The moment that defies all logic. God commands Moses to strike the water with his staff, and the Red Sea splits right down the middle, creating a dry path to safety between two massive, towering walls of water. Pharaoh and his army arrive and see this impossible path. But blinded by his own ego, he doesn't see a miracle for his enemies, he sees a highway for himself. He gives the order, and his entire army charges into the seabed after them. The moment the very last Israelite is safe on the other side, the walls of water come crashing down. And as he's drowning, Pharaoh, the man who called himself a god, finally cries out, "I believe in the God of Moses." But it was far, far too late. But the story doesn't quite end there. There's one last, profound twist. Unlike the rest of his army, Pharaoh's body wasn't just lost to the sea. It was preserved and washed ashore so that his fate could be an undeniable sign for every generation to come, a timeless reminder of where absolute power, mixed with absolute arrogance, will always lead.